And I want to get for our audience really, Ryan, how you define where you sit in the overall market. Because right now, from what I understand, is you're a co-location offering. So we've got big hyperscalers, we've got neoclouds, and then we've got Flexential.
That's correct, and thanks for the opportunity to catch up this morning, Caroline. It's really about the type of infrastructure that you deploy out there. Flexential is taking a very pragmatic view on making sure we're able to address the wholesale infrastructure, so the 1 to 20 megawatts, but also making sure that we're able to address the multi-tenant capabilities that are out there as well, because those are the companies that are going to be consuming the agentic AI capabilities that we're seeing to start to accelerate out there. So the landscape is starting to separate a bit, and Flexential thinks we've got a very strong position right down that fairway on that wholesale multi-tenant co-location marketplace.
Ryan, that sounds like you want to be diversified. You don't want to just have one particular buyer calling you up saying, I will take 100 megawatts from your future project. How are you hearing, though, from potential clients? Are they wanting you to be their sole provider, or take entirety of their business in certain locations?
Yeah, Caroline, you're spot on. We want to make sure that we're diversified in our customer base. And, the simple answer is yes, we have companies that come to us and say, we want to take one of your whole data centers and put all of our, GPU, TPU, XPUs in those facilities. That's just not where we're going to play. We want to make sure this multi-tenant ecosystem environment has a place out in the market, and our product set is just perfectly fit for that out there today.
You talk about GPU, TPU, XPU. What is the constraint right now? For all of 2025, it felt like the narrative was it's the chips. But actually, then it became the power. Then there was worries about water. Where are you seeing some of the choke points?
Yeah, I mean, it's really threefold. We see land, power, and supply chain, and supply chain being that of the mechanical infrastructure that goes inside the data centers. And so you have to be very focused on all three, and you're not just planning for 26 right now, you're planning for 28 through 30, because this dynamic marketplace and the consumption models that are out there, we've got to be very focused on the long-term gains and being able to provision this infrastructure to meet those requirements.
So where does that infrastructure end up going? We keep talking about innovations, particularly in the inference side of things. And people have got anxiety about NVIDIA's role going forward, as once the models are trained, they're being used. Is it still all about the GPU? Is AMD getting a look in? What your clients demand?
Yeah, and so it really depends on what the end customer is trying to use the infrastructure for. Let's not forget that right now we're shipping 5 CPUs for every GPU out there. And so this dynamic integration between the CPU world and the GPU world is really starting to form. And that's where this agentic capabilities, being able to use multiple services, is really starting to drive this demand growth. And when people talk about AI bubbles, I think we're still at the forefront of this AI consumption model to really start to put our hands around that. I think we've got a long runway to go.
Long runway. What does that mean for your runway, Ryan? As we said, you're one of the biggest privately held operators. I assume you're not just getting calls from clients, but from companies that want to own a bit of your real estate.
Absolutely. And so we're looking at this in 5 and 10 year horizons. And so we've got a firm path over the next 5 years for that land, for that power and supply chain. We're buying out infrastructure to make sure that we're able to meet this growth trajectory out through 2030, 2032. Once you get out past that, it's a little bit hard to predict what this infrastructure is going to look like. We're firmly entrenched with liquid to chip, liquid to rack, and immersion cooling inside the facilities to meet these higher density deployments. But right now we're firmly focused on getting out to that 2030 to 2032 deployment strategy.